The air in the bank was thick with tension as the elderly black woman, clutching a worn envelope of her life's savings, felt the weight of every scornful glare from the tellers. Her hands trembled as the youngest employee, a sharp-tongued woman in a crisp uniform, slammed a hand on the counter and shouted, "Get out, you poor old lady." The room fell silent, the humiliation slicing through her like a knife, her dignity unraveling in front of a crowd of indifferent faces. Just as tears welled in her eyes, a calm yet commanding voice cut through the chaos, "That's enough." All heads turned to see John Kennedy, a silver-haired man with a gentle demeanor but steely resolve, stepping forward from the line, his presence a beacon of hope in the storm. Her name was Evelyn Harper, a 78-year-old widow who had spent decades working as a seamstress, stitching together not just clothes but a modest life for herself and her late husband. The envelope she held contained the last of her savings, meant to cover her grandson's college tuition, a dream she'd nurtured since he was a boy. But today, her world felt like it was crumbling. The bank had flagged her account for suspicious activity due to a small deposit from a church fundraiser, and instead of assistance, she faced hostility. The tellers, led by the aggressive young woman named Claire, accused her of fraud, their voices dripping with condescension. Evelyn's heart pounded as she tried to explain, her voice cracking under the pressure, memories of a lifetime of hard work flashing before her eyes. She felt small, invisible, a relic in a world that no longer seemed to care. John Kennedy, a retired lawyer with a reputation for standing up for the underdog, had been in the bank to deposit a check for his own charity work. He'd noticed Evelyn the moment she walked in, her proud posture belying the frailty of her age. When the confrontation escalated, something in him snapped, a deep-seated belief that no one should be treated with such disrespect. He approached the counter, his voice steady but firm, introducing himself and demanding to speak to the manager. Claire scoffed, rolling her eyes, but the manager, a nervous man named Mr. Grayson, emerged, clearly unprepared for the scene. John didn't raise his voice. Instead, he spoke with a quiet authority, recounting Evelyn's story as she haltingly filled in the details, her voice breaking with every word. The bank's error became clear. A clerical mistake had triggered the false alert, and the staff's reaction was uncalled for. The challenge deepened when Mr. Grayson hesitated, citing protocol and suggesting Evelyn return with more documentation, a delay she couldn't afford with her grandson's enrollment deadline looming. John saw the despair in her eyes and decided to take action. He offered to represent her pro bono, pulling out his old lawyer's badge and insisting on a full review of her account right then and there. The bank staff bristled, but John's calm persistence and knowledge of banking regulations left them with little choice. For the next hour, he worked alongside Evelyn, guiding her through the process, his patience a stark contrast to the earlier hostility. The other customers, initially silent, began to murmur support, some even stepping forward to vouch for Evelyn's character from her years in the community. The emotional turning point came when Evelyn, overwhelmed by John's kindness, broke down in tears, clutching his hand. She spoke of her late husband, who had dreamed of their grandson's education, and how she feared she'd let him down. John listened, his own eyes glistening, and shared a story of his own, a time when he'd failed to help a friend in need, a regret that had driven him to dedicate his retirement to helping others. This connection forged a bond between them, turning a chance encounter into a moment of mutual healing. The bank finally relented, clearing Evelyn's account and issuing an apology, though Claire's glare suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. Mr. Grayson, red-faced, promised a review of staff training, but John knew the real victory was in Evelyn's restored dignity. As they left the bank, the sun breaking through the clouds outside, Evelyn turned to John with a grateful smile. "I thought I was alone," she whispered. John squeezed her hand, replying, "You're never alone when someone cares enough to stand with you." He drove her home, ensuring she had the funds transferred for her grandson's tuition, and promised to check in on her. Word of the incident spread through the community, inspiring a local movement to support elderly residents with banking needs, with John at the forefront. By the end, Evelyn's grandson called to thank her, his voice filled with pride, and she felt her husband's spirit smiling down on her. The story closes with an inspiring message. In a world that can be cold and unforgiving, one person's courage to act can ignite a ripple of change, reminding us all that kindness and justice are the threads that mend a broken society. For a 15-minute YouTube video, This narrative unfolds at a steady pace, about 2 minutes for the hook and introduction, 5 minutes for the rising tension and John's intervention, 5 minutes for the resolution and emotional depth, and 3 minutes for the aftermath and message, leaving viewers uplifted and motivated to stand up for others.